After the class, Sujay will be there. Rupali, you can take his help and to find out what exactly is the problem. Only question I have is, have you understood the logic? Everybody, have you understood the logic, please? If you're not understanding, please ask. Because in interview, in your project, in your career in Informatica or in a data warehouse space, this SCD1, SCD2 will play a bigger role. If you have questions, please ask. Now, we are going to talk about yesterday, that is the previous class, we discussed about SCD1, that is holding the current data. The logic is to ensure that the data in the target table should be, ensure that the target table data should contain current data only. So, when it contains the current data, the logic is you have to check if the customer ID exists or not in the target table. If it exists, then you update the record in the target table. If it does not exist, you insert the data into the target table. When you insert along with the sequence number. So to identify if the record exists or not, we use a lookup transformation to find if the record exists or not. And you are going to insert the data in one stream based on one condition, and you are going to update the data in one condition. So you use router transformation to stream the data. Then when you want to update or insert through mapping, then you use a transformation called update strategy transformation. In that, you specify to insert the flag, insert or delete or update or reject the record. You flag it off through the update strategy transformation. When you say update, Informatica update strategy, updates based on the primary key. Based on the primary key, it needs to update the data in the target table. That's the reason we have taken the surrogate key in our mapping. Now, today's class, we are going to discuss few things. In projects, your source is a flat file. In projects, your source may be a flat file. So, when your source is a flat file, to define the structure of the flat file, the file should be on your local machine. But when you execute it, when you extract the data from the file should be on the integration service. That is the server machine. And you have to specify the path. Now, sometimes in projects, you will get multiple flat files. You will get multiple flat files as your source. If the structure of the flat files, when your source is a flat file, what you have to do, I have explained you, we have done it. When your source is multiple flat files, you need to load data into the same target table based on different logical conditions. Then if you have multiple flat files, then you have multiple flat files. If the structure of the flat files are different, That is, you have one file with employee underscore east. Structure is different. Like example, columns may be different, or even if they have same columns, but that the separator, it may be a comma separator. You have another file called employee underscore west, which is semicolon separator. Employee underscore central, it is pipe separated. So if the structure of the files are different, even if you want to load into the same target table, then you have to create three mappings and create three sessions, and in a single workflow you can execute these multiple mappings. Or you create three streams. It is called pipeline, which the other day when Yasim asked about two mappings in a single mapping, which I showed you that solution, three pipelines in a single mapping. Create one session and execute in one workflow. This is the solution. If the structures are different, three different structures of the files, then you use this solution. But if the file structure is the same, for example, you have multiple files, data is coming in multiple files, but you have the file's structure, definition of the file is the same with the same number of columns across all the files, like employee underscore east is tab delimited, and I have another file called employee underscore west. This is also tab delimited, same structure, same fields, employee underscore central, tab delimited. If the structure of the files or the definition of the files is the same structure, you want to load into the same target table based on the logic, same logic or a different logic, or to a different target table also, then how will you do it in Informatica? How does Informatica handle this? If you have three files or more than three files, in our example you have three flat files with the same structure, you need to load data into STG employee tables. You have multiple files, same structure, you want to load it into STG employee table. So you have files like this. I'll show you the files. This is employee underscore east file. This is employee underscore central file. Which I'll share with you now. And employee underscore west. So you have three flat files, same structure. You have three flat files and the same structure. Then how to do it? Create one mapping with one source, any one source as your source definition. You create one session only and execute in one workflow only. But at runtime, when you execute it, Informatica should extract data from all the three files. Informatica should extract data from all the three files. should extract, Informatica should extract data from all 3 files at one time. So that the solution for this, that's what I'm going to explain you. Till now, have you understood it, please? You have 3 flat files as source. You need to extract data from multiple flat files. If the structure is the same, that is the definition of it is same, then how to do it is my explanation. Or I have explained you what is multiple flat files. If the structure is different, how to execute it. Now my agenda for this lab is, if the structure is the same and you have multiple flat files as a source in a single mapping, in a single session, how you execute it. Have you understood it? Others, please. In Informatica, the way they do, if you have a scenario like this, what they do in Informatica is, they create another file. They'll create a file which contains the names of the files, of all the 3 files or more than 3 files in another file, which we call it as file list. File list will contain the names of the files through which you want the data to be extracted. That is called as a file list. So, when your source is multiple files, you need to extract data from a multiple source files for one source instance, that is one source definition, provided the properties of all the files must exactly match the source definition. That is, the structure and data type and everything should match the same. Then you create one file which will have the name and directories of each source file you want to extract it from, which is called as a file list. We have to create it ourselves in projects, a file like this, which I am showing it to you now in a minute. So a file with the file names should be created ourselves, which we call it as a file list, which contains the file names. And this file list should be in a path or in a directory, path or directory, on the integration service machine, that is the server. So file list and the files should be on the integration service. So the file list and the files, file list and the file should be on the integration service machine. Now, in the session properties of Informatica, that is, I'll take the business case study 5, which we have done already. I'll take the session of case study 5, where I am going to extract for this mapping from multiple files. Previously, we extracted only from one file. Now I'll extract from multiple files. How to do it is my agenda. Mapping, source. Previously, you were giving the path for that file. Now give the path, but for that file list, which I call it as employee underscore list, which contains the file names, through which you want to extract the data from multiple files. You specify the file list name and the path on the integration service where this file list exists, and you make this file type as indirect. Direct means it is the actual file from where you are extracting it, which is default. You make it indirect. When you make it indirect, Informatica's understanding is this file contains the list of files from which it has to extract the data, multiple files. So if you make it indirect at runtime, it will go to this path. When you execute it, goes to this file. Because it is indirect, it understands that this will contain the file names. So it will go to this file and extracts the data. After extracting, second file, third file. Like this, it will extract the data from multiple files. It will extract the data from multiple files in Informatica. So this multiple file list contains the file name. So one after another, it will extract the data while executing it. Important point, if you do not have any path here, if you didn't specify any path in this file list for those files, then file list and the file should be on the same path. File list and file should be on the same path or directory on the server itself. If you have file list, files are on different paths like D colon. You can give like this also, E colon, C colon. So at runtime, what it will do, it will open the file list, sees this directory, goes there and goes for this file, E colon this file. One after another, it will extract the data in the server, then it will do the process. So this is called the multiple file list concept. So in Informatica, when you execute a files with multiple source files with the same structure, same definition, same column types and all, then you can execute it. So you put this file path, then the file name and make it indirect. So it will extract the data and load the data into the target table. Yes, you can have it, you can give the path also. But for that, we should do FTP. File Transfer Protocol. That I will discuss with you after 1 or 2 days. After on Tuesday evening, I will explain you what is this FTP thing. So till here, everybody clear about multiple file concept, please. Open your sheets. Please write it down for the session of CS5. Make it indirect and the file name is file list. That's all you have to do. Please write it down. Is it clear, everybody, of multiple file list concept? So at runtime, you should create a file list and keep it on the Informatica server. How about Sita and Rupali? Are you clear? So please write it down. If you are done, please let me know. That is the difference between a direct and indirect. Direct means from the same file. Indirect means indirectly it will know that in the file list you will have the file names. Are you done, please? Now I'll execute this mapping. But how many records it should load? That is what we will discuss now. So this is employee West. How many records this employee West will contain? You can say status view status bar. You can see it in a .NET file. So there are 32 records. To remove the header, one line. So in employee West, you have 31 records. Then how many records are there in the employee East? 29 records. Remove the header, so it will have 28 records. Then this is employee Central. I'm talking about these lines, please, here. Line 30 means 29 records. So total, it should load 88 records. Total, it should load 88 records when I execute this mapping. So in this session in my workflow, anyway, it will delete the data in the target table because you have kept the formula. You have set it in the target of case study 5. Let me show it to you. The target table properties. Delete. So whenever you execute it, it will delete the data in your staging table. So let me execute this. Start workflow. So it should load data from multiple files, 88 records. Let us go and check the data in my staging table. Select the star from STG employees. So we have '88 records. We have 88 records which will be loaded into the target table. Clear, everybody? Yes, Yasin. Answer to your question. Yes, Yasin. Now, let us come to a discussion point. Next, the mapping loads the data from STG employees table. This mapping is SCD type 2, slowly changing dimension type 2. So you have STG employees table. You are going to load the data into dimension employees table and concatenate first name, last name. All this is the same. So then we have to do SCD type 2. So my approach to this mapping first will be I will define the source, I will define the target, I will create an expression transformation and concatenate, reformat the phone number, gender and the age group. Then we will discuss SCD type 2. So the first step in my Informatica mapping, source, import from database from my staging, and dimension employees, mapping create m underscore case study 9 dim underscore employee, source SPG underscore employees, target dimension employees, there is another requirement which I want to introduce to you. The data in the staging table has employee ID's null values where employee ID is null. If you look at the data, it has null values. We should not load these null values into the target table. We should, after you extract it, you should not load this data, these null records into the target table. There are 3 records. These records should not be loaded into the target table. So what shall we do? Question to you. I do not want to load the null records into my target table. What should I do? So I'll come back again. Somewhere I stopped the recording. So I'll come back 2 steps back and go. We discussed about SCD type. This mapping contains. Somewhere I missed the recording. I stopped the recording. So I explain again. So it should be in the recording. So I'm extracting the data from STG employees table. I'm going to load data into dimension employees table. It has concatenate first name, last name, 4 numbers, substring, and all that stuff. So in Informatica, first step we will define the source in the source structure, importing from the database of staging, and we load the data into the target of dimension employees table, import from the database. Then we create mapping, case study 9. Then in the source there are records with employee ID is null. We should not load this data into the target table. So the option we have is either we filter at the source qualifier itself, that you use lookup SQL override. This is called SQL override. Here you say where extract only the records where employee ID is not is null. Is not null. You can say where employee ID is not null. So while extracting the data itself, it will fire the select statement and get you this data. So you will get 85 records in your source qualifier if you will put it. This is the way people do. That's the way people do. If it is a relational, you have to write it in the source qualifier itself. Or you use a transformation. If your source is a flat file, then you use a transformation called a filter to filter out the employee ID. So I'll put a filter transformation. And in this filter, I will say only the records which are true, it should take out. So employee ID is not null. Not is null. You write it in filter transformation. SQL, you write it that way. In filter transformation, you write it this way. Thanks, Yasin. So use filter, because you may forget it. Use filter here rather than in the source qualifier. Also you can write it, or in a filter you can write it. Then best practice, create expression transformation. I hope you have understood, right? Others, why I have used the filter. I could have done in source qualifier itself, but to show you the difference, that's why I'm using filter. In the lab also you use filter. Are you with me? Deba, are you with me? Expression transformation, best to practice. Now, as we did yesterday's mapping, same way, take only the columns into the expression transformation which are required for you. In your target table, it needs employee ID, first name, last name, I'll put it here. Then it needs employee name, so I concatenate the first name, last name. String of 30 characters. Here, function concatenate, first name, comma, last name. Then address, city, state, zip code, country, phone number. For concatenate, for phone number, to make it as phone number out yesterday, previous lab. String of 15 characters or 20 characters, whatever. Make it as output port only. Then the syntax is similar to yesterday's class, previous class. Same syntax, you use it. Then fax number, email, gender. Now for gender, I have given you the yesterday's one. Same thing you have to use. So gender out. Make it as output port only. Age, and create a port called age group. I hope I don't need to explain this. This is what we discussed in yesterday's class. So you put the age group. Then please observe the fields. After age group, native language, second language, third language, and position type. Then you have dealership ID, that is your first column. So you put the dealership ID here. Then the other columns, regional name, dealership manager, hire date, and date entered. So these are the fields. This is what we have done in yesterday's previous chapter of this. I put it in my expression transformation. Now let us discuss SCD type 2 logic. Go back to the basics. You have regional office and you have a head office. So 101 joined in San Jose, 102 joined in Texas on January 10th. Now, the clerk in the regional office sent these two records to you through post. It has taken and it has come to the desk of the head office clerk. Then head office clerk opens the post. Then you write the logic. What is the logic for our SCD type 2, which we have discussed extensively in the data warehouse concepts. That's what I think extensively, but what you think, I don't know. In my opinion, I have discussed that in data warehouse concepts what is a CD type 2 very clearly. So, what did we discuss in a CD type 2? What was the example we discussed for a CD type 2? Anybody can give me? When we discussed the CD type 2, I gave an example. Anybody can tell me what was the example we discussed? Oh, I have to send a message, huh? What was the example I have discussed when we discussed the CD type 2 in the data warehouse concepts? I gave an example. I'll give a hint. The CD type 2 contains current plus history. For that, I gave an example, general example. One example I gave is this regional office, head office thing. Another example I discussed with you. Do you remember? I'm talking about a CD type 2. Slowly changing dimension type 2, which holds current plus history. Nobody? So sad. We discussed called resume. How resume holds current information about your current project plus the history projects. You remember? So, how we write our resume? First time when you prepare a resume, let's say you are working on a project 1, you write the project description and all that stuff, but it will have a start date and end date. So when you submit the resume on working on a project, let's say it is January 2007 you are working, you gave this resume in March 2007 to somebody, you are still working on the project, so you will not put an end date to it. So what the person who looks at the resume knows that you are working currently in this project. In April you move to a different project, so what you do? You move the project down first, and first you put a end date to it. Let's say you completed the project in March 2007. I'm talking in a scenario in April you moved to a new project. So what you do? You update this end date. Then you write another project 2, and in that you say start date and end date. Start date will be April 07. So no end date to it. When you give this resume in April to somebody or in May somebody, they will say that it is you are working on this project currently and this is your history. Then for example, you move to another project in August. Say September you move to a new project, first you will update this end date. Your resume, I'm working on my resume. On my resume, I move to a new project in September. So what I do, in my resume I update this to August 2007 and write a new project 3 and put a start date to it. And end date, start date will be September 2007. There won't be any end date. So in this scenario, you have the Whichever has the end date, that are history. Whichever does not have a end date, that is called as a current record. So you hold in your resume current plus history. How to identify in this example? Where end date is null, that is your current. And wherever there is end date, you will know the length of the project. So what is the activity he was doing or myself was doing? Whenever I move to a new project or look at it from a very simple example, you started your career, you are working on the first project. So you insert the project into the document. You move to the second project. When you move to the second project, what you do? You update the end date for project 1 and insert the project 2 in your resume with the start date. For example, you move to a third project, what you do? You go and update the end date for project 1, project 2 and insert the project 3 for your start date. So it is doing 3 activities. One is insert, else update and insert as a new record. First time it will insert, from next time it will update and insert. So you have start date and end date. This logic may be effective date and expiry date or flags people use in different ways. This is one of the logics. Now coming to this example, that's why you have a start date and end date. They will design like this only in your data warehouse projects by the architect and data modelers. It may have start date, end date, or effective date and expiry date like this. So our clerk in the head office sitting there insert the record as a new record with the understanding that the date entered is your start date. Date entered is your start date along with the new sequence number. Next day, what happened in the source? 103 joined in Florida. 101 moved from San Jose to Virginia on January 11th. So they updated in the source system, that is in your regional office. This is a different type of doing it. So send only 11th January data to the head office. Here the clerk sitting there, he will check for 103, does it exist or not. If it does not exist, he'll go and insert it along with the new sequence number. That is the data coming from here. That is the data coming from here. That is coming from your head office. It's from the regional office. You are going to insert it as a new record with a new sequence number. Next, checks 101, does it exist or not? Yes, it exists. So what shall we do? Like, please observe it, my explanation of project 2. When the project 2 came in, I updated. My start date of project 2 was April, so April -1, March. Here it is MMYYY. In my case, it is a date field. So in Informatica, what we will do, start date, not in Informatica, in this business logic, end date is this -1. This date entered -1. This date entered -1. This date -1, it will go and update the record existing in your head office. Then you insert as a new record with a new sequence number for the start date. Then next day, 104 joined in Phoenix, 101 moved from Virginia to Florida. 12th January data sent to the head office. Checks 1014 does not exist, so it will insert this data. Please observe it. This 104 data is inserted. Then check 101. Does it exist or not? Yes, it exists. So if it exists, what should I do? This date entered -1. I should go and update my head office. But in the head office, there are two 101s. In the head office, there are two 101s in your head office. So which one should I update? If I update both, then this edge date will also become 11th January. This also become 11th January, which is incorrect. I should update this record. I should not update which is already updated. I should not update the record which is already updated. So based on what I will update, where end date is null, that record only. That is the current record. Before I load this Florida record, till that time this is my current record in my target table or in my head office register. So based on the surrogate key, for that where end date is null, I'll go and update it. Then I insert it as a new record in my target table. This is the logic which we have discussed in our data warehouse concepts. Clear, everybody? Now if you go to Informatica, what we did in Informatica, we extracted the data from the source and loaded into the staging. And from staging, you have to load it into the target dimension table. Now the logic which I am going to discuss, please understand it. If you forget the example only, what example we discussed, what you will remember as the logic in that, I don't know. I reiterated when I talked about data warehouse concepts. This is very important. You have to understand it. You have to make note of it and all. As I reiterate again my statement, I can take the horse, still the water. I cannot make it drink. I am not a god. I am a very small human being. I cannot. I can only share my knowledge. That too I acquired over a period of time. So that's all I can do. It is your life. It's you. If you are okay, the statement I use is this: if I am okay, the world is okay. If I am not okay, I don't care what happens to others. That is the philosophy of life nowadays. People have it. So first, you be happy. To that, you have to work hard. Just listening and getting a job, that is not true. Nobody will pay you $60,000 or $40,000. Even for $10,000, $20,000 also, people will not pay you if you don't have knowledge. And we are explaining very clearly what it is, and every step I am asking you, every step I am discussing with you. Please read Ralph Kimball book. I reiterate again, read that book. Hold that book to your heart. To your heart. Don't by heart. Do not by heart that book. It's not for by heart. Please read that Ralph Kimball book, please. Tarvata మీ ఇష్టం. It's up to you then. Now coming to the Informatica logic. Before I build a logic, my way of teaching is this. I'll try to explain you the algorithm of it so that you have some clarity on it. So, SCD type 2, what is the business requirement? If you observe the logic, you have to get the data from the source. Here the source is your staging table. And the business requirement is SCD type 2 that contains current plus history of data. First step, you have to check the employee ID of your staging is equal to employee ID of your dimension table. You have to check it. You see the logic, please. I'm talking about this logic. You have to check is 103, which is coming from a regional office, in our case from the staging. Does it exist or not? So if the condition is failed, if the condition fails, what should I do? I should insert into the dimension table I should insert into the dimension table data coming from your staging, with the understanding that date entered is your start date in your dimension table with a sequence number. If the condition is true, then you have to first update the end date for that particular employee ID or you use the employee surrogate key, then you insert into the dimension table. So if the condition is true, these are the steps. So if you are a traditional programmer, like using PLSQL programs and all that stuff, how you are going to achieve this is you say begin, declare, then you declare a cursor for selecting the data from staging table. Then you write if the condition of your employee ID of your staging is equal to employee ID of your dimension table, and condition fails. I reiterate the same steps. Condition fails. Then you do insert into the dimension table along with the sequence number with the date entered as your start date. If the condition is true, that is employee ID coming from staging exists, first step you update the dimension table based on the surrogate key in the field of end date. How do you calculate end date? End date is nothing but date entered, which is coming from my staging table, minus 1. Date entered is nothing but, end date is nothing but date entered minus coming from your staging table, minus 1. Then insert the record which is coming from staging into the dimension table along with the sequence number. With the date entered which is coming from your staging will be the end date start date in your dimension table. So this is the logic. So if you want to look at it from layman terms, the logic is very simple. Either you insert the data into the target table, into the dimension table, else you first update the end date in your dimension table, then insert into dimension table. So 3 DML activities happen in Informatica at this stage. 3 DML activities will happen. Not only in Informatica, 3 DML activities are happening in this mapping. So how to go about this? First step, we will define the source, we'll define the target, we'll create the mapping. Then check the employee ID coming from staging is equal to employee ID of your dimension table. How will you check it? You use a transformation called lookup transformation. Now after lookup transformation, it is falling into three streams. One for insert or update and insert. Three activities is happening through splitting into data into three streams. So I will use the router transformation. After you split into three streams, in the first stream, you are going to insert directly. So you use update strategy transformation. And you say insert. And you will put a sequence generator for that. Second stream of data, you will take it out. If the condition is true, then use an expression transformation to calculate end date is equal to date entered minus 1. Then use an update strategy to update the record on the sequence based on the surrogate key which is coming from the source qualifier transformation. Then third stream, you insert it using the update strategy transformation, another update strategy transformation, and use the same sequence generator to insert the data into it. So you are going to load data into three target multiple instances like yesterday's mapping. This is the logic, this is the requirement. How to do it in Informatica, I will do it now. Is it clear? Is it clear, everybody? You don't need to use update strategy. You can directly put it in. But as all of you are learning the tool, so if I use multiple times, you will get the practice of using update strategy. You got it, Yasin? See, there are many ways of doing this. This is all my experience, and I do not want to complicate things. Because if I use more logic, more things, then as learning it will become too challenging. This is the simple way. Performance-wise, maybe it is not a good performance. You can fine-tune all these things. But to learn HCD type 2, to have a clarity how it works and all, we found this as the best simple way to make people understand. Yeah, there are other ways. You should reduce update strategies and all that stuff. You can do it for performance tuning. But as a developer, when you are developing in the ETL phase of development phase of the project, the philosophy we say is in development phase, break the logic. Afterwards, you do performance tuning and all that stuff. So for breaking the logic means simple. Maybe you use multiple transformations. Performance-wise, it may not be good, but logically, you break the problem, you break the challenge, you make it work. Then in the test phase, then we'll go and fine-tune ourselves. Now, coming to Informatica, if you are not understanding, please ask. I'm telling you, in my life, this is my USP in my training program. My unique selling point in my training program is the explanation of SCD1 and SCD2 and the fact loads. Even if you read books, sometimes you not understand what they are talking about. With all our experiences, we have fine-tune this to the simplest form. You may find a more simple form in this world. I'm not denying it, but if you're not understanding, I am the best person to solve it to you, because you are spending your money and your time to learn this. And we are the service providers. So, to do a lookup, to get the record does it exist or not, we will use a lookup transformation. To split the data into multiple streams, we will use a router transformation. To generate a sequence number, we will use a sequence generator transformation. To insert the data into the target table, I will use a update strategy transformation. I'll go step by step. The first step I will take is, I'll take only this logic. If the condition fails, I'll take only the first logic. If the condition fails, what should I do? That is, if the employee ID which is coming from my staging does not exist in my target table, that is in my dimension table, what should I do is my discussion point. So another important point, please observe in the source, there is a column called date entered. Let me show you the data first. In the STG employees table, you have to concatenate first name, last name. You have to reformat the phone number. You have to change the gender when you load into the target table and age group. And date entered is the day on which the transaction happened. It is 10th January 2005 in this example. So, first time, there is no data in my target table, that is my dimension table. So there is no data in my dimension table. So that is the first step I'll do. So first step, look up into the dimension employees table. Where is the table? If you have already imported as a target, you can take it from here. Or you can say import from relational database. Use the ODBC connection to import for the lookup, the table, dimension employees like your yesterday's dimension customer. Now these are all the columns of your dimension employees table. You did a lookup on this table, so all these columns will become lookup ports, that is L port, that is L port, that is lookup port. And this target table contains start date and end date also, like our example. So our condition is this employee ID coming from my expression is equal to the employee ID of your target dimension table. So I rename this as input. I specify the condition. Employee ID is equal to employee ID input. Save it. Yesterday in our discussion, in the previous chapter discussion, we said in the lookup transformation, when you use the lookup transformation, if it is a table on which you are doing the lookup, then lookup will write a default select statement by itself. So at runtime, using that select statement, it will extract the data from the table on which you did the lookup and puts it in the lookup cache. And you can modify this select statement which you have written in your lookup. You can modify that select statement also. That is called the lookup SQL override, like your source qualifier transformation. Here also you can lookup override. So it will write a default select statement. How will it write the default select statement? Based on what it will write the default select statement lookup transformation? It will write the default select statement based on the lookup ports from which table on which you are doing the lookup. Those lookup ports will become its select columns. Then on which table you are doing the lookup, that will become its where clause, from clause. So all the columns of your lookup ports will become your, you write a select statement on this. Are you with me, please? Is it clear about lookup transformation? It will write the select statement to get the data from the table on which you did the lookup. By itself, it will write a default select statement. Then, as yesterday's discussion point, I will use a route transformation to load data into dimension employees table. What will be my condition? If the condition fails, this employee key, which is coming from my lookup, will contain null value. So I rename this as LKP. Like customer, I'll rename this in the router employee LKP. And what are the columns I require? I'll take it from my expression transformation, that is employee ID, employee name, address, city, state, zip code, country, then phone number out, fax number, email, not gender, gender out. So fax number, email, gender, then age group, then it goes into your router transformation. Here date entered, in our discussion point we said date entered will become your start date. It will become your start date. Group condition, new record. I say yesterday's discussion point is null, employee key, which is coming from your lookup. Is it null or not? That is your group condition. Because if it is null, then that means the condition failed. If the condition failed, we need to insert the data into my target table. So transformation, create update strategy transformation for new record. So from the router, I'll accept employee key. I'll take all the columns into my first update strategy transformation. Then from employee ID to date entered. Please observe here, from employee ID to hire date, I will connect now. Date entered is your start date. So directly you connect this date entered to the start date field of your Informatica target table. In this update strategy transformation, you write dd underscore insert. Then transformation, create sequence generator to generate the sequence number. Next val, I'll put the current value as 3001 and save it. So I use a filter, expression, lookup, router, update strategy. So in this example of this sheet, I didn't put expression because of space constraint. So I have a source, I have expression, employee is coming in into the lookup transformation. In the router is null, it's a dd underscore insert. The start date is nothing but your date entered. I renamed it the expression transformation itself, but I didn't do it in the mapping because to give you clarity. You can rename it, the column names in your start date as your date entered. Now when you execute this mapping, lookup will write the select statement onto that table on which you did the lookup and gets the data into the cache. But observe it. we need only two columns from the table in which you did the lookup. One is the employee ID of the dimension employee table to check for the condition, and I need a surrogate key to downstream it. If the condition fails, it will have a null value. If the condition does not fail, it will have a value. For that, I need a employee surrogate key fields only. Performance tuning of lookup transformation is remove the columns, remove the lookup fields which are not required. This is one of the performance tuning steps of lookup transformation. That is, remove the columns that are not required. That way, what is the advantage? Lookup has a cache, so it will have less data in the cache. So it has less data in the cache. So if you have less data in the cache, that will improve your performance. So how to do that in Informatica? Please write it down. I hope you are writing it in your sheets. Remove the columns. I need employee ID for my condition and employee key for my value coming out of the lookup transformation to check it. So remove the columns which are not required. So I'll remove this. Before I remove it, let me show you the SQL what it has written. So it has written the select statement from the columns on which you did the lookup. Let me go to Toad, and this is on a dimension table, so it will write a select statement like this. So, and puts the data in your dimension table. So rather than putting all the columns, I remove the employee name till the end date. Till the end date, I remove these columns for my better performance tuning of my Informatica mapping. That will be best performance step of Informatica. So in this diagram, I have removed that employee key, employee fields, only put employee ID and employee surrogate key. This is your mapping, and you have a sequence generated transformation to load employee surrogate key. Now everybody listen and observe it. When I execute it, source data will come, and lookup will go and get the data from the table on which it did the lookup. There is no data in the table on which it did the lookup, so cache will not contain any data. So record by record, Informatica will process. First record comes in, scans the cache for 101 record, does not exist, so it will return a null value. When it returns a null value, so that particular employee ID does not exist in my target table. So employee table. So employee surrogate key will return a null value. So when it returns it, it goes to the router, null value, true, along with the new sequence number, it will go and insert it. It will go and insert the data into the target table with a new sequence number. This is what we have done till now. I'll take to the next step of the logic. Let's say 2 new records were added in your source. So you load only 101 moved from San Jose to Virginia in the source system. You extract only 11th January data and load it into staging. Then first record you check it, 103. Does it exist or not? It will not. It does not exist, so it will go and insert it along with the new sequence number with the date entered as its start date. Now check if 101 exists in that office. If it exists, then what you should do? End date should be date entered minus 1 that you have to calculate, and also you have to update that record in my target table Then insert this record as a new record in your mapping. So the logic we are talking about is, till now we discussed about if the condition fails. In the lookup transformation, if the condition, that is employee ID coming from staging, does not exist in the employee ID of dimension, then you insert it. If the condition is true, how do I identify the condition is true in Informatica? Go to the router transformation. In the group condition, if the condition is true, what should I do? I should update the record in my target table. Before that, I have to calculate end date and update the record based on the surrogate key. If the condition is true, means lookup transformation will return a value for that employee key. So my another group condition, existing the condition for this is, if it is existing, how will I know? Not is null, employee key of your lookup. Can you say OK? So it is existing. So what should I do? Same target table. 3 target tables I will keep it, because 3 multiple instances of my target table. So what is the next requirement? If the record exists, so employee key will have a null value, will have a value of the previous records of that 101 employee, and I have to calculate end date. How to calculate? That is, I will put expression transformation first. In that, I will calculate the end date. So what are the columns you require? You only require employee key and the end date. You will only require the end date is nothing but your date entered. For the second group condition, now from this date entered, I will calculate end date. How to calculate end date? Make it as output port only, and directly you cannot say date entered -1. Informatica provides you with a function called add to date. Go and read the help how it works, but write down the syntax. Add to date entered, comma, single quotes, DDD, comma, -1. So from that date field, it will take the date out of it and makes it as -1. It will take the date out of it and makes it as -1. Please write it down, this in your logic. So end date is date entered -1. Now transformation, create update strategy transformation for my updating the record. Based on employee key, I will update only the end date. I need employee key because it is the primary key in my target table. So based on that employee key, I will update it. So I write it here, dd_update. Then employee key I connect it, and also the end date which I calculated, that will be connected. So the logic, you calculated the end date and you updated it. Based on the surrogate key, automatically it will update it. For the condition is true, you have to do another option called insert the data. To insert the data, for make your life simple, not simple, make you understand easily, I'll create another group condition. Existing, but you insert it, same condition. If the record exists, same condition only. I'll create another router group condition for the same condition, as Informatica's router transformation will test for all the group conditions. So I use another router condition so that I can stream that data to be loaded into the target table. I need to insert it. So transformation create, update strategy, existing that you are inserting. So I'll take from employee ID till date entered. It's nothing but your start date. And in this, you will load the data into the target table. From employee ID till date entered is your start date. You link it up here. Properties, DD underscore insert. Then how do you get the sequence number? Use the same sequence generator transformation. Put the next value to this. So this is how you do the mapping in Informatica. So let me take it up the next step. Group 2, not is null employee surrogate key lookup. I'll calculate that end date. I gave the syntax. Syntax is up-to-date function. But here to make things very clear, I put it that start date, DD underscore update. Based on the employee surrogate, it will go and update it. Same group condition, but this I will use for my insert along with the same sequence number generator. Why I use same sequence generator? Because it will fall in this loop or this loop. Both will not work on the same record at the same time as per this mapping logic. If it works, then you have to use separate sequence generators. Then I execute this. Please observe what happens. Source will be extracted from the source. Lookup will fire the select statement of employee surrogate key employee ID on that dimension employee table and gets the data into the cache. Then Informatica does row by row. First record comes in, scans the cache. Record does not exist, so it will return a null value. If it returns a null value along with the new sequence number, we'll go and insert the data into the target table. Then 101 comes in, scans the data, record exists, so it will return a value of 7001 as the surrogate key. So if it returns a value, then first group, it will check for all the group conditions. Second group condition is true. It will go there. And third group condition is also true, so it will go there. But I take only employee ID, address and start date. So I don't take the surrogate key for this stream. So 7001, based on it, it will go and fire the update strategy, update the target table, plus insert the data as a new record. This is what is Informatica's logic. So lookup will get the data from the table. Observe the lookup transformation very carefully. Now observe the lookup transformation very carefully in your Informatica mapping. You execute it. So this data, as soon as you execute the session, this data comes into the lookup cache, which is existing on the table on which it did the lookup. On the table on which it did the lookup, that data has come in. Now observe my point of view. 103 comes in, scans the cache, record does not exist. As per your Informatica logic, it will go and insert the data into the table into the target table. But observe it. You have inserted the data into this table, and that is the table on which you are doing the lookup. Informatica will not refresh the lookup while the session is running. Informatica will not refresh while the session is running. Lookup transformation will get the data from the table on which you did the lookup as soon as the session is executed and puts the data into the cache. While the session is running, lookup transformation will not refresh the cache till the session is completed. This is the functionality of lookup transformation. Lookup gets the data from the table on which you did the lookup, but it will not refresh the cache. Next time when you execute the session, then it will get the data from the table on which you did the lookup. Clear, everybody? Are you clear? They don't do update, insert simultaneously. One record at a time it will do it. It will stop at the session. First, whichever is the first target, into that it will go and fire that update statement. The sequence you give in the session properties one after another. So second target it will go and update it. Then the third target it will go and insert it. Simultaneously it will not do in the target. Yeah. Please hold on for a minute. Yeah. What is SCD type 3? We are discussing SCD type 2. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Here we are not checking the end date. Means the employee key as well as the end date. If the record is already exists with the end date, here update. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I see the diagram? So I can explain it. The last one. Here we are checking only the employee ID, right? If this ID is already exists, then we are updating the end date of previous record and inserting the new record in the employee table. But if the record is already exist with end date previously, then it will change the date right here. While here in DD update, it will change the date and then insert the new record. Here we are not checking for the date. If the end date is available, we should. Hence, there is no such condition here.
Okay. I'll explain you the next slide. It should clarify your doubt. If it doesn't clarify, then we will discuss.
Okay.
I'll explain the next example. In this third time, what happens, and I'll be explaining you. There it should clear your doubt. Okay? So I use the router transformation. Now next time what happens? The data 104 joined Phoenix, 10 moved to Florida. So 12th January data you extracted from the staging and you load the data into dimension employee table. Check if 104 exists in the office. If it does not exist, then insert the record of 104 along with the new sequence number. Now 101 comes in. If it exists, you update with the end date as date entered -1 for the record. But there are two records in the head office. Or in the target table. So what shall we do? Which record should be updated? the record which has a end date null value. You cannot update both. If you update both, then end date will be there for 11th January for this and this same. This record is already done. You have to update the existing record, you update it, then insert a new record. Where end date is null, for that record you update it, like your resume. Like your resume, when you go down, as you put the new project in it, you will go and update the end date, previous project end date, which is a null value. So that record has to be updated. So how will you identify that record? Where end date is null, you identify. So how will you know where end date is null? And that you can find out using the surrogate key you identified, but you need for that end date null record only, you need that record and you update it and insert it. Now in Informatica, look at in Informatica perspective, how to identify that end date is null while extracting the data while getting the data from the dimension employee table by the lookup transformation. Look at it now from Informatica perspective. When you execute it, you have multiple records in this employee ID. It will fire a select statement and gets the data into the lookup cache. 104 comes in, scans the cache, record does not exist, so it will return a null value. So 104, it will insert a new record into the target table. 101 comes in, scans the cache. I'm looking from Informatica perspective, please. 101, multiple records exit. So which record should I take? Answer my question. Which record should be considered? The record which has end date as null. So if the end date is null, how to make it where end date is null? We need to get the data into the cache where the end date is null, that record into my lookup cache. So how to achieve it? In the lookup SQL override, I will write it. Please observe in the lookup SQL override, properties, generate SQL, where end date is null. Please write it down. So at runtime, it will fire this select statement on the target table. Please remember, you are using end date in the where clause. There is no need for this port to be selected, please. There is no need of selecting this port in your lookup transformation. Where end date is null, there is no need of selecting that port in your lookup transformation. You are just using it in the where clause. So at runtime, it will fire the select statement onto the target table and gets you only the records which has end date into your lookup cache. So if you do that in the lookup SQL override where end date is null, look at the mapping now. So when you execute this, it will get the data into the cache of 7002, 7003 and 7004. 102, 103 and 101 into the lookup cache. 102, 103 and 101 into the lookup cache. So when it scans the cache, how did it got only 7002, 7003 and 7004 records? Because their end date is null. When we want to update it, we want to update where end date is null. That record which is already there in the dimension, that record we need to update it. That's why you do SQL override in the lookup. For 103, 104 record does not exist, so it will get inserted into the target table. When 101 comes, scans the cache. record exists, so it will return 7004. Based on 7004, you go and update the record in your target table, then insert 7006 with the new sequence number into the target table. So to get the records into your cache, you do the lookup SQ override. Clear, everybody? Rupali, is it clear for you? Is it clear, everybody, why I use SQL override? Lookup SQL override. So there is another way of doing this also in Informatica. In the lookup transformation properties, in the lookup policy on multiple matches, lookup policy on multiple matches in the property sheet. So I'll go a step back and tell you what it is. You don't need to write a lookup SQL override on that. I'm giving another process, but you better write it. The lookup SQL override. Now I'm talking about this option of lookup policy on multiple matches. Use first value, use last value, report error, use any value. Use first value, use last value, report error, use any value. So the issue is, in the lookup SQL, when 101 comes, it scans the cache. You don't need to write a lookup SQL override. You can use multiple matches also. Lookup policy on multiple match. Please observe the policy. Lookup policy on multiple matches. What does it mean is, when 101 comes, it scans the cache. Based on the condition, it will find multiple matches. It will find multiple matches. So which one should I use? Use first value. That means it will take 7001. Use the last value. Then it will take 7004. Report an error means session will fail. If you make it a report an error, or use any value means it can use any of those values for that condition, for that record. So in this example, you can put it as use last value. Also, you can do that also, or you can write a lookup SQL override on it. That is called multiple policy on multiple matches. That's option in lookup transformation. Policy on multiple match. Policy on multiple matches. So when it scans the cache, it finds multiple matches. Should I use first value or use the last value? And use any value on the match or report error. So these are the options in the lookup transformation. Now you may it will go and get the last value, but you may ask me a question. Whenever it finds the select statement, how can it will be in this order only? Will it be in this order only? Your question. For that answer is, by default, when in lookup writes the SQL override, lookup transformation writes that statement, SQL statement, to get the data from the table on which you did the lookup. It will write the next statement. Columns will be your lookup ports. From will be on which table you are doing the lookup. And by default, it will write order by based on the ports you selected. Based on the ports you have selected, Informatica lookup transformation, it will write the default select statement order by itself at runtime. That's why you get all the values in the order by fashion in the cache. So you can use last value also. This is the description for your last value of Informatica, multiple matches. Clear, everybody? With this, I'm done for today. So please write it down this first. Are you clear with these concepts, please? So write this up. Viva. Let me complete this, Yasin. Then I'll take up your question. Are you done with writing this? Okay. Then take this up. Please write it down. Okay, I'll create a session for this. Mapping source is my DVSPT SB14. 3 targets. So three target connections. Change bulk to normal. Change bulk to normal. Change bulk to normal. Look up. So on the target, so give the target connection. So three target connections, lookup connection. Start workflow. Succeeded. So select star from dimension employees table. It will generate the employee key, segment generator. So it has concatenated the first name and the last name. Changed the phone number format, employee gender. It has given the age group also. Date, this is your start date, no end date because first time you are loading it. How many records it has loaded? 85 records it has loaded because it has filtered those 3 records which we had as a null value. So it loaded 85. For you it should load 85 records. Then I'll explain tomorrow how, if you have the second set of data, how it works. That we will discuss in tomorrow's class. With this, I am done for today. So please go ahead and do the lab. Do yourself. Go ahead, Yasin. Please ask. Go ahead, Yasin. Hello. Yasin, are you able to hear me? Yeah, please on the
Hey, Vijay, so this is a couple of generic questions. Is there a way you can write any comments in the mapping? Because if the mapping is too big and a lot of transformations are there, can I write some comments?
Comments in the sense?
So if you say arrange all iconic, right, there are like 10 transformations there. If I want to write something on top of any of the transformations, is there an option like that? Comments, yeah. Have you seen anything?
I'll check. We didn't try it. Like in SSIS and all, we have seen that. I'll just check it out. And get back.
Okay. And is there a way you can disable? Let's say I want while I do the development, right? I might copy something and I might not need it. So can I disable that particular component only? Is there an option like that?
No. You mean to say you want to disable this component?
Right.
No, you cannot.
Okay.
Either you delete it or...
Okay. And just coming back to my previous question, if there are if there is the same target and multiple inserts and updates are happening, so it goes top down. That's the thing, right? It does the... Okay. So if I do my update on top, the update will happen first and then the insert will happen later.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Welcome. Okay, everybody, please do the mapping.